All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the iconic Hearst Tower. I was a little worried about who was going to come out on a rainy Monday, but it is Women in Climate after all. So thanks for coming. For those of you who I have not met yet, my name is Katie Bailey, and I'm a senior. Oh, I got slides. I'm a senior director of Hearst Lab based here at Hearst HQ. I could not be more excited for the content that we've pulled together for all of you tonight. First, a little context on us. Hearst is one of the largest diversified information services and media companies in the world. From investing in sustainable programming and journalism to maintaining thousands of acres, this is a fun fact, thousands of acres of forests and regenerative farming at our ranches, to building one of the greenest skyscrapers in New York City. Yes, you're in it. Responsible environmental stewardship is a core part of the way Hearst does business. Many of you likely know Hearst for its magazine brands, Elle, Cosmo, Delish, Good Housekeeping, or its TV networks like A&E, History, and ESPN. What most people don't know is that Hearst also includes a range of B2B data and software solutions in the healthcare, transportation, and logistics industries, as well as global financial services leader, Fitch Ratings. Speaking of Fitch, we've got a number of folks in the room from Sustainable Fitch and Greenwave ERG team here, including Marcy Block, I saw her earlier, global head of ESG ratings. So maybe wave or there you go. Hey, Marcy, thanks for being here. And that's not all. Hearst also has a major footprint in philanthropy through Hearst Foundations and venture investing. Speaking of, did you know only 2% of all venture capital goes to women-led companies? Unfortunately, Hearst Lab was founded nearly 10 years ago, specifically to close this gap. We have invested nearly $100 million exclusively in early stage women-led tech startups worldwide to date, and we are just getting started. Today, at the intersection of Women's History Month and Earth Month, it felt like the perfect opportunity to bring together these worlds. Right now, you may be asking yourself, who cares? Who cares about women? Who cares about climate? And the answer is a lot of people. Look around. Thanks again for being here. Before I turn it over to kick off our first session, a few more quick thank yous and housekeeping notes. First, thank you to Hearst Lab's chairwoman and our local celebrity, Eve Burton, who stopped by in the front row, and Hearst's executive team for their unwavering support of the Hearst Lab community and programming like this. Today also would not be possible without our partners at Project W. Thank you, Lynn Loker and your team, for your relentless commitment of our shared vision and mission. Of note, Project W is pleased to announce that applications are now open for their signature Women Entrepreneurs Bootcamp, specifically for women founders building B2B climate tech solutions. So be sure to check out their program, and all of this can be found in the digital program in this link. Speaking of, this link has information on all of the founders, all of the programs, everything that you're going to hear about today. So if you're looking for contact information or how to follow up with someone, that's a good place to start. You can also always email or reach out to anyone at Hearst Lab. There's a few of us walking around with Hearst Lab shirts, so don't be shy. After the programming, we'll hope you'll stick around for a networking session in the lobby. And I think that's all I've got for you. So with that, Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Katie, and hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Tuak, and I'm part of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, where our mission is to accelerate the transition to a circular economy. And that's a system where we eliminate waste and pollution. We circulate products and materials through strategies like repair, maintenance, remanufacturing, reuse, resale, even recycling and composting. And we also regenerate nature. And by doing these things, when we eliminate waste and pollution, we can actually reduce emissions throughout the value chain. When we circulate products and materials, we retain embedded value and energy. And when we regenerate nature, we can sequester carbon and store it in the soil and natural ecosystems. So that is what really drew me to the concept of circularity and circular economy, was this framework and a system and a vision for an alternative to what we have now, which is very wasteful and extractive. And so the circular economy presents a way to tackle climate change, to address things like biodiversity loss, deliver co-benefits for people, for the environment, but it also presents a really powerful opportunity for business. So there are so many innovative business models, services, products, materials, and you'll be hearing from folks today who are working in the solution space. So I am very excited to introduce our first speaker. And I'll say a little bit more about the broader session. We're going to have very tactical examples of how to identify and integrate sustainability into core business practices. So some inspiration, but some really practical examples too. So I'm very excited now to introduce our first speaker, Faith Taylor. And Faith, I'll let you say a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Okay. Should I use this? All right. Thank you so much for having me here. I want to say, who cares? I care. My company cares. We care on a global basis. I'm Faith Taylor, Senior Vice President of Sustainability for Kyndryl. And I've been in this space for over 20 years, where I created my job when it did not exist in the hospitality industry. And I remember when I started, people thought I was out to pasture. And I was at Wyndham Worldwide, and I had the chance to talk with my CEO when we broke off from a big conglomerate. And I said, let's start a sustainability group for the company, because it's going to be strategic and important. I had seen Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth, and I told him to go see the movie, and he did. And so I created my job, which was a fantastic opportunity to build it from the ground up. And from there, we became the world leaders in hospitality. But what was really, really important is that over the years, I learned about how do you build a program from the ground up, right? And what was really interesting is that now I'm at Kyndryl, which is a hospitality company. No, it is a technology company. And how did I get there? Well, I had a stint at Tesla, which is very interesting today. And everybody's, I'm just going to leave it at that. But I had the opportunity to help them build their ESG practice. And then I was actually recruited by Kyndryl to come and help them build their program from the ground up. Now, what does that mean? Kyndryl broke off from IBM, right? We're in 60 countries, 16 billion in sales, and 80,000 people. And we had to start from scratch. And since then, I've been there 3.5 years, and we've committed to net zero by 2040, 2030, 50% down, using 100% renewable energy. And we built it into the foundation of the company. Who cares? My company cares. And as I see the challenges we have today, right, where people say, well, is climate change for real? Do women matter? I am so happy to see the women in this room. You guys are our future, and women are on the front line of climate change. I was just in India, and I was traveling there for our company. We're in Bengaluru, and Bengaluru is they call it their Silicon Valley tech city. And while I was there were all kinds of opportunities for recycling, for energy, renewable energy usage. And what's great about that part of the world is that there is a CSR tax that India says 2% of your net profits have to go back to investing in the country with social programs that are aligned with sustainability. Who cares? Countries care. And despite we may be trying to roll back things, when I look at this from a global perspective, I see not only that, I see the indigenous regulations in Australia. I see California maintaining their sustainability commitments. And although we backed out of the climate pact, who signed up? Bloomberg and team, right? People care, cities care, we care. And it's absolutely critical to understand that foundation. So how does that happen? I was asked to talk about employee engagement, right? How do you drive employee engagement? Well, number one, you build it into the foundation of the company and you walk the talk. You demonstrate that your company is making these commitments, but you have to educate and train your employees, and you have to have a bottom up and a top down solution. And so we have what we call 10% of our senior leadership team has to meet certain environmental, social governance commitments. And one of them was related to mission net zero, that every employee would get trained about that. Now, why is that important? Because every employee is part of our footprint. When you travel, when you commute, when you purchase products and goods, that's part of our footprint. And if people don't understand that, then they won't understand what they can do to be involved. And that has been critical in building our program. And we are down 8% since we started 2 years ago. So we can tell our associates, we are committed, this is what we're doing, and this is your role. Now, it's not only through education, but also how do we actually drive innovation? And I want to tell you, we have a Green Guild. A Green Guild where people volunteer, almost 500 people on their own volunteer to develop solutions, technical solutions, leveraging technology. We have over 240 data centers. We offer software solutions, AI data analytics, cybersecurity, software applications, on and on. And we have certain business verticals, but the people in those areas care, and they on their own commit to participating in the Green Guild and bringing forward solutions. What has that done? Well, currently from that, we have solutions of how to track and measure your footprint in your IT infrastructure from that group. They brought it forward. And that now has been offered to customers. I'm simplifying this technology, but at the end of the day, I look at it as driving innovation and unleashing the power of our people. And why? Because I had people say, I care, what can I do in my job to contribute towards the solution? That's just a simple example of how the employees from the ground up can develop solutions. And today, we've been recognized for many of these solutions as a leader in the IT infrastructure space. What's shocking to me was that, I'm just about done here, was that we're competing against Accenture, IBM, all of the big boys, but we're the little engine that can, leveraging our own employees. And I really want you to know that as you're on this journey, don't forget that our employees, our associates, our customers care. And I'm part of demonstrating that to you today. So thank you very much for having me. And I look forward to listening to the rest of the speeches and, panels today. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith, for your commitment, for caring, and for your leadership. Next up, we'll be meeting 4 founders building enterprise solutions for everything from employee engagement to supply chain transparency and inventory management. So I'll introduce everyone quickly here as a group, but please do share a little bit more about yourself and what you're doing. So first up, we'll be featuring Lizzie from Scope Zero. Then we'll hear from Stephanie at Olokia. Then Raham from Apartment Deco. And finally, from Kaya Lin from Planet Forward. Come on up.
Hi, everyone. Perfect transition from Faith's talk into the importance of engaging employees in corporate sustainability. And I'm going to talk about how we do that with our carbon savings account at Scope Zero. So first, I want to touch on two key areas of impact that individuals or employees make on a daily basis. And these are your homes and your cars. So within the United States, these two areas account for about a third of all carbon emissions from energy use. But to break this down on a more individual level, the average technology in the average US home is so outdated and inefficient that just with simple efficiency upgrades, you could cut your utility bills in half. To give an example on the water side of things, the average person in the US uses about 50 gallons of water every day, just inside, just at home. If you implemented water efficiency upgrades at home, the average US home could save about 23,000 gallons of water a year. To give an example on the electricity side of things, the average US home could save about $300 a year just by unplugging devices when you're not using them, or by instead plugging them into a smart power strip that blocks those standby or vampire currents. So obviously, these metrics are impacted by how and where you work. So if you work from home, your utility bills are likely about 20% higher than they would be otherwise. And that makes sense. You're using your energy and water consuming devices more if you work from home, maybe besides your showers and your laundry. And then if you commute to work, the average person in the US spends about 210 hours per year in their car just commuting to work, adds up to about $1,500 a year in fuel costs. That cost metric does not include parking, tolls, insurance, et cetera. So you can see that there's a ton of potential with efficiency upgrades for individuals to save on their home and transportation costs. These upgrades can also provide significant impact to a company's corporate carbon footprint. So I pulled two random examples from publicly available ESG reports from Zillow and EY. So the blue chunk of the pie here are metrics from their latest ESG reports in terms of their overall carbon footprint. The green chunk of the pie comes from a back of the envelope Scope Zero calculator that estimates their work from home and commute emissions based on the amount of employees they have. So of course it depends on the size and industry of the company, but the reason for showing this is to show that work from home and commute emissions are not negligible. And especially when you think about everything else that falls within a company's footprint, from the supply chain to its office buildings. So the company, given these financial and environmental implications, companies have the opportunity, and you could argue the responsibility, to help employees lower their costs of commute and work from home. So this is why we created the Carbon Savings Account, or CSA. It's an employee benefit and a corporate sustainability strategy. It follows a simple and familiar employee benefit framework where the employee and the employer both contribute funds to the account. Then the employee uses that money for eligible home technology and personal transportation upgrades that reduce their utility bills, fuel expenses, and carbon footprint, ultimately saving the average US home over $5,000 per year, all while reducing work from home and commute emissions, otherwise known as Scope 3 Category 7. You can see on our employee dashboard, it's not just the financial incentive. We help with all the logistics associated with the upgrades. We provide customized upgrade recommendations. We have a marketplace. We surface utility and government incentives. And then we also measure all of the savings from CSA upgrades and then feed that into the employer dashboard and delineate the work from home and commute emissions. So there are several reasons that it's important to engage employees in sustainability with the CSA. The first is that the CSA makes commute and work from home emissions measurable and approachable. This category used to just be a fixed level of emissions. Okay, employees commute to work. Those are emissions that that are going to be there regardless, but now we can do something about them in a way that significantly reduces the overall company footprint, all while providing strong financial savings for employees, which attracts and retains talent, reducing employee turnover costs. And then to what Faith mentioned before, the carbon savings account creates these ripple effects for organizational savings because employees are now more interested in how they can save resources, not just at home, but also at work. So ultimately, the CSA is one of the most impactful benefits that a company can offer to their employees. If every employee in the United States that's offered a 401k were also offered a CSA, we could save over $300 billion a year in utility bills and fuel expenses, which is the environmental equivalent of removing 125 million cars from the road. To put it in a cost perspective to the company, CSA budgets clock in usually well under 5% of the total 401k budget. We can onboard any size company at any time throughout the year, and we support a global workforce. We typically work with ESG and HR leaders or employee resource groups that are focused on the environment, but we can also work with any employee that is advocating for the CSA at their company. So with that, I thank you for your time. I'll be around afterwards with a few team members. Please feel free to say hello.
Every business with a supply chain has excess inventory. We all have it. It's just a fact of doing business. Now, I'm not saying it to shame everyone, but we are all part of the problem. The $1.77 trillion a year worth of excess inventory traditionally sits in warehouses collecting dust or being burned or sent to landfill. That's what got us inspired. And I know about this problem because my family has been in the business for over 100 years. Here's a picture of me with my great-grandfather, Pappy. In 1896, he came over on a ship from Austria. He landed at Ellis Island, and he settled into the Lower East Side of New York. He was an immigrant chasing the American dream, and he had to make a living for his family. He came with nothing. So what did he do? He would find materials and supplies nearby, old fabrics and furs, and things the immigrants weren't using anymore, and he would repurpose them into the most beautiful fashion garments. He sold to local customers, and it was an incredibly successful business. Now, we didn't talk about it as circularity or sustainability, but at the end of the day, that's very much what it was. And our vision with Alokia, formerly known as Queen of Raw, is how can we use technology to get back to the way my great-grandfather did business, which makes sense for people, for planet, but also for profit. So we built this solution, a SaaS software platform for companies to manage all this excess inventory all in one place. Now, these 4 R's you see, reuse, resale, recycle, resource, probably heard them before. You may even be doing some of them to a degree manually in some parts of the world. But what if we told you that we could not only help you manage all that excess inventory, getting off those Excel spreadsheets, we know very familiar, and actually make it actionable, giving you access to the world of reusers, resellers, recyclers, and donation partners with a click. These are just some of our customers and partners that we work with across industries and around the world, from Nike to Anheuser-Busch and beyond. So to give you an example of how we're already doing it, here's Ralph Lauren. For them, we took action on tens of metric tons of excess inventory across 7 locations within weeks. And this included textiles, clothing, paper, plastic, packaging, metal. And they were able to divert 92% from landfill and incineration. The CEO was very proud of these results, and he put it as point number 2 in his cover letter to his financial and legal reports. So the C-suite too, they care. For Ralph and others, we track a lot of interesting data. The more excess materials that you save, the less new materials you consume. So this cuts down on the carbon, water, chemicals, and waste. That's an algorithm that we built with MIT, fully audited by Deloitte for the results. And so talking about this impact, that matters too. Take, for example, Shein. they are one of our customers. And just by talking about the impactful work that they're doing with us, they were able to reach 148 million new prospective customers. And now their end consumers can scan the QR code on things that are sustainably made and see our impact data and the results at their fingertips. But we don't just want to manage this excess inventory. We want to actually model it, read the data intelligently, predict it, and minimize that excess going forward so we can solve the problem. You know, by some accounts, fashion, textiles, excess inventory is the #2 polluter in the world of clean water globally. We actually have the power to solve the world's water crisis if we rethink how we do things. We've already saved over 1 billion gallons of water, and we're just getting started.
Life is short. Life is precious. We need to make every moment matter and go build things that are going to make a difference and change the world. And I'm not stopping till I do.
So as you saw in that little clip, that's my why. I'm doing this for my children. I want them to have clean water to drink, clothes that aren't toxic to wear, and a planet to live in. I'm not stopping till I do. My great-grandfather came to America wanting that better world for his family, and so do I. My name is Stephanie Benedetto. I'm the CEO of Alokia, and always your queen of raw. Thank you.
That was awesome. It's actually perfect. Segue into AppDeco. Here we go. So one of the quadrants from Stephanie's presentation is resale, and I'm here today to talk to you about resale. So how many people have heard of AppDeco before? Oh, wow, that's more than I was expecting. Incredible. So many of you, say that again? Yeah. That's awesome. So as many of you know, AppDeco is the easiest way to buy and sell furniture. I started this business because I was trying to figure out a better way to do this. And we built a community, and that's why we have this beautiful slide of people who have this is what we do. We help people buy and sell furniture. And as Stephanie also mentioned, there's a ton of waste, not just in apparel, but also in furniture. Over 12 million tons of furniture is actually landfilled every year. And we're here to help solve this problem. So we've actually had success so far. We're delivering real value for consumers and the environment. Over 23 million pounds of furniture has been diverted from landfills because we've made it easier, simpler, and more convenient for consumers to buy and sell furniture. But what most people don't know about us is that we are actually the leading operating system for furniture resale in the industry. What does that mean? We are powering actually all kinds of things for the furniture industry as far as getting them involved in resale, because our platform is convenient, because of our logistics, because of our community of over 700,000 customers, because of our resale insights of over 10 years of resale insights. And that's all fueled by our proprietary logistics for local level and also at a national level. So what we've built is something very unique. Bulky unpackaged goods, not a sexy topic, but things that don't fit in a pallet or don't actually sit in a pallet, or they're unpackaged because they've already been, they're out of a box. It turns out it's very, very hard to move them. And it's not like when you put something in a UPS bag or UPS box, it's really hard to move these products. And so what we've done, we've developed technology and also service around moving these very complex, very heavy products, not just from one city, from one block to another, but also across state lines, across the country. That's what we've built, technology and service all in one. And things are getting picked up from your home, from a retail store, actually, and also from a distribution center. Sold on AppDeco, picked up and delivered by us, our delivery teams. You might have seen our orange trucks around New York City, or also through one of our trusted partners. So what this means is we're actually powering resale for a lot of the leading brands. So you might have heard of brands like West Elm, Pottery Barn, Lazy Boy, Article, and so many more. We work with brands in a variety of different ways to introduce them and also get them involved in resale. We help them they use us as a secondary resale channel. So they sell their excess inventory returns, floor models through on AppDeco's platform. We power outlets for a lot of these brands. We are also white labeling our software. So now brands want to get involved, seriously involved in resale, where they want to create their own resale experience. We do that for them. We're also helping them with returns. For furniture, 15% of products are actually returned. It's a big problem from a financial bottom line, but also from a carbon emission perspective. We help them with that. And lastly, we're also powering resale logistics. Brands who want to do resale, again, bulky, unpackaged goods, not a sexy topic, but very hard to do. We've figured it out for furniture. We're doing it beyond furniture. We started with furniture, but we're actually doing anything that's big and bulky that can't fit in a box. And so we're helping brands align with trend forward, sustainability focused consumers. Consumers are choosing secondhand, and consumers are actually expecting brands to be serious about resale. Over 44% of Gen Zs and millennials have actually bought a secondhand product in the last year. I'm just going to pick a couple of stats from this slide. 78% of millennials are actually expecting brands to be serious about sustainability. So this is what consumers are expecting, and a product like AppDeco is a way to get serious about resale. So resale is good for business, and it's actually good for the environment too. So this is not just about, hey, like, let's figure out how to save the environment, and this is not actually good for your bottom line. It reduces landfill accrual by 82%. So by actually reusing a product, there's approximately 82% of these products can be diverted from landfills. And it engages new and churn customers and boosts LTV, which is, what does that mean? Cost less to acquire a customer. It's actually profitable for these brands. It makes money. It's a revenue generating business opportunity. Or it's 2x, actually a couple of stats here that I wanted to share. So, but when consumers are selling products that our brands have on their brands' resale sites, they're actually on average buying 2x more. This is really big deal, right? So for brands, this is what we share. And so if you guys are if you're working with brands, it doesn't have to be furniture or bulky good. I really encourage you to be talking to your businesses and thinking about resale and reuse as a serious business opportunity that helps your bottom line. And that's AppDeco. Thank you.
Before we start about supply chain decarbonization, I just have to say how amazing it is to be in a room of so many women focused on climate. Just deeply brings me joy. My name is Kyalyn Aiken-Zerby. I lead growth for Planet Forward and have been here since the beginning of building our business. Planet Forward set out to solve the climate-related needs of businesses with complex supply chains. Ultimately, about 60% of global emissions can be tied back to a supply chain, meaning that we cannot achieve global climate goals without decarbonizing Scope 3. For companies to actually achieve net zero, there's a few overarching challenges. So for a business, on average, those with complex supply chains, their total emissions, up to 90%, are coming from their Scope 3, which are extremely hard to measure and to reduce. And at the end of the day, these are still businesses who are responsible for growing. And it is really hard to both grow your business and reduce your emissions. And so in order for them to achieve net zero, they have to decouple the growth of their business in terms of dollars and revenue coming in and the emissions of their company. In order to do that, they want to reduce the emissions intensity of the products and services they create and sell more of those lower emissions services and products. The challenges, or these challenges, are also increasing in terms of the risk to businesses if they do not solve them. So what we're seeing now is that there's increased regulatory pressure. The EU CSRD and the California Climate Disclosure Act are now requiring companies to disclose their emissions, making Scope 3 an actual liability for businesses. Climate change is driving increased supply chain disruptions, which are causing real costs to businesses, and consumers or retailers are increasingly requiring and demanding lower footprint products and transparent supply chains. But traditionally, it's been really hard to understand what the impact is of your supply chain. Companies might rely on hundreds to tens of thousands of suppliers. If they even know who those suppliers are, would be a good step. But additionally, we want to know what the impact of those suppliers are. Many companies are relying on outdated or generic data to estimate the emissions of their supply chain. And so even if they have an estimate, it's extremely hard to know what to do and where to start. So Planet Forward has solved these issues. There's a couple core elements of our technology that make this possible for us. One is that we have an extremely in-depth life cycle assessment database made up of all the building blocks of a global supply chain. Everything from the agricultural system that might have developed an ingredient to what happened to your products after the end of life. We've also invested heavily in building AI-powered supply chain modeling capabilities so that customers can input the minimum possible data that they have and receive the maximum possible insights related to that information. We've brought together those capabilities into 3 core solutions for our customers. One is an AI-powered product lifecycle assessment tool, which gives them the ability to create complete standards-aligned cradle-to-grave LCAs at scale. The second is a scope 1, 2, and 3 corporate carbon footprinting solution. And then the third are scope 3 decarbonization solutions that allow them to take those insights and turn them into action, whether that be sourcing from lower footprint suppliers, informing procurement teams about the impact of the different products that they source, or achieving compliance across their full supply chain. For a business who might have previously paid tens of thousands of dollars for a stagnant LCA report, now with Planet Forward, they can measure the impact of every single product in their product portfolio for a fraction of the cost and basically in real time. For companies who have complex compliance needs, they can do that in Planet Forward as well. And for those that are on the path to achieving net zero and wanting to pursue emissions reductions, we'll tell them where those opportunities exist within their business, within their supply chain, and exactly what they can do to reduce. We now work with many leading brands across the consumer industry, everyone from ingredient producers to brands to retailers. And I want to tell you the stories of 2 particular customers and some of the outcomes that they had with Planet Forward. One is Ritual. They're a really awesome high growth supplement company. Maybe some of us take their vitamins in the morning. And they wanted to make sure that as they continue to grow, they can achieve that decoupling that I was talking about, continuing to grow their business, not grow their emissions along with it. And so they use Planet Forward to do life cycle assessments for all their products, as well as corporate GHG inventories annually. And one of the huge wins that we had from working together was that they found that sourcing regenerative pea protein, as opposed to whey protein, which is more standard for the industry, had the ability to reduce the impact of that ingredient by over 900%. What was even cooler about that was that the actual carbon sequestration that's happening from growing those peas that feed into the pea protein was enough to offset the entire footprint of the rest of the product, meaning they had a naturally carbon negative product. They can sell as many as they want of those. They're not going to be growing their emissions alongside it. That's a huge win. A second story is Compass Group. They are a $70+ billion global food service company. They are probably one of the largest food purchasers in the world. They have a huge impact on our global agricultural supply chains. As part of that, they've had a net zero commitment in place for over 5 years. But their sustainability leaders didn't actually have the data and information that they needed across their 350,000 plus SKUs that they purchase annually to know exactly what they could do to achieve that reduction. They chose Planet Forward to help them uncover where those opportunities exist within their supply chain. And in our first year of working together, we were able to identify emissions reduction actions that added up to a 30% total scope 3 reduction, which is really, really big. We are continuing to work on developing these types of case studies for our existing customers and for all those that you guys might know or be. We would love to be in touch. We'd love to get to know you. Thank you.
Thank you, presenters. That was amazing. So next up, I'm going to hand it over to Estefania from the UN Global Compact to kick off our panel on sustainability through the lens of investment and profitability. And spoiler alert, it's here to stay.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you to the organizers of this fantastic event. It is an honor for me and for the UN Global Compact to sit down with fellow entrepreneurs, innovators, leaders from the public, private, and philanthropic sectors to explore how sustainability can help companies grow, strengthen their brand value, and reduce risk in this new globalized world, and also unpredictable given the circumstances. So first, I would love for everyone here to tell us a bit about who they are and what they do.
Sure. I'm happy to start. So my name is Malika Cantor. I work at Amazon Web Services. I work a lot with our VC firms, venture capital firms, and their portfolios. My background is working mostly in venture capital. I spend time at places like Sequoia Capital. My background is in artificial intelligence and robotics. So for this panel, I'll be sharing more perspectives from that side and where those can really drive impact from a climate perspective. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Olga Polunina. I'm a managing director with Independence Point Advisors. We're a boutique women-owned firm right here in New York City. So we're very excited to support women entrepreneurs always. But I lead our sustainability vertical, which means covering all types of climate-based, climate-related companies, particularly around materials. I previously spent almost 15 years at JP Morgan doing chemicals and then capital raising. So I'm excited to work with fast-growing entrepreneurial companies.
Great. Hi, everyone. Good to see many friends. I'm Sonam Balani. I am the co-founder and managing partner of Street Life Ventures. We are an early stage venture fund investing at the intersection of cities and climate. For us, that means pre-seed and seed stage companies across 5 main sectors: buildings, energy, mobility and logistics, waste and water, and adaptation. A lot of the things that were covered earlier, which we're very excited about. And we partner with cities, infrastructure groups, and real estate firms to help early stage companies actually deploy their products, either in the physicality of the built environment, if they are hardware companies, or through technology systems if they're software companies. We also have a huge network called Climate Tech Cities, and Lisa from our team is here. We started as an 8-person dinner right here in New York in the middle of COVID, and we're now over 25,000 people in multiple cities across the world, and we are proudly 50-50 gender parity, which I think is like unheard of in this space. So very proud to be sort of a woman-owned firm and supporting a lot of the founders in this room and beyond.
Great. Hi, I'm Diana Roten. I am a partner at PVG. We are a small strategy consulting firm. We focus explicitly and exclusively on climate. We work in four sectors within climate: power generation, built environment, transportation, and financial markets. We work with the ecosystem of stakeholders, so ventures and investors, family offices and foundations, incumbents and corporates, and nonprofit and community organizations as well. That should be enough.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, and cannot wait to discuss more and learn more about your work. The first question here goes to Sonam. How do you assess the trade-off between financial returns and measurable environmental impact when making these important financial decisions? And what are the barriers preventing more investments in climate tech? And how can investors, policymakers, enablers, founders work together to accelerate this funding at scale?
Yeah, I think our panel is profit and purpose, right? And the two very much so go hand in hand. I often say that, you know, if these companies are not wildly profitable, they're not going to have any climate impact, right? And I think that's something that we all need to internalize as an industry, because ultimately people make decisions, whether it's us as consumers or large corporates, based on the bottom line, right? If something costs $5 at the supermarket, you're probably not going to pay $15 or $20 because it's sustainable. I think that is a pipe dream for all of us, right? But that's not the reality of how the world works. So whenever we're often talking to founders and sort of builders in this space, we often ask about, you know, how can you actually drive the unit economics of your business and your operations to be able to achieve as close to price parity as possible with the solution that currently exists, right? That might be focused on saving, it might be focused on saving time. It might be focused on saving cost, energy. A lot of the pitches that we just saw earlier touch on any one of those topics, right? We also look at what we call feasibility, right? So is your product something that is driven by regulatory changes? Is your product driven by something that has a technology moat that you are creating around this ecosystem? The second piece is around desirability, right? Are there other human beings who want to pay for whatever it is that you're building, right? And why? And how can you actually meet those pain points? And then the third piece is around viability. So this is all around the unit economics of your business, right? And how do you actually operate in the complexity, in our case, of urban spaces? And again, right, drive down those costs. I think there's a huge role for all of us to play as different stakeholders in this ecosystem to meet those three criteria. On the regulatory side, as I mentioned, we often work with cities, rubber hits the road at the local level, right? And a lot of the policy changes that cities actually implement are required, and the public and private sector work together to actually meet those mandates. In a city like New York, as an example, a few years ago, we passed our Green New Deal. It's about $16 billion of investments, 30 different initiatives, one of which was Local Law 97. And that's to drive down emissions in our building sector. In a city like New York, we have a lot of buildings and they're all very old, right? It's about 73% of our emissions profile. We passed this law in 2019. It went into effect last year, right? A 5-year grace period. And over the course of those past couple of years, so many founders and entrepreneurs have created products to actually address building emissions, right? That is an example of cities actually playing a role in that local economic development in terms of new company creation, but also solving pain points that exist within their city. So I think it's sort of this all hands on deck situation, right? And all of us have a role to play in each of those aspects.
Yeah, and definitely important to highlight that intersection between responsible policies, innovation, and innovations that speak to customers. For Diana, many climate innovators struggle to scale beyond pilot programs, of course. So what strategies have proven successful from going to niche adoption to widespread industry adoption?
It's the $64 million question. I'm going to cheat and use some notes that I wrote while we were listening to the pitches earlier, because they actually were inspired better comments than I had come with. So, so I will just say it's important to recognize, and Lizzie, we met 2 years ago, I realized while you were pitching. So I'm excited to see you again. This is a tough market right now, right? We have major political shifts. We have a whole range of new funding constraints. In 2021, and all of you know this, it was much easier to find affordable capital for your idea. A lot of willingness to invest in experimentation phase. So we're facing a different market. I think the other challenges that have come up recently that we're seeing is, the customers, as you start to expand and go into like higher rates of adoption after your first adopters, there's still a lot of biases and assumptions to overcome. You know, behavior change, consumer behavior change is very hard. And additionally, we're seeing that additionality metrics of like really demonstrating that your product is doing what you have imagined it would do. We have had some setbacks, particularly in the financial markets. So these are things that have really turned the market, I think, in the last 6 months, I would say. So what do you do in this market, both to survive and then to scale? And I was really inspired by the talks that we heard earlier. So these are not, it's not rocket science, but I think I'm hopefully, you know, when I worked at IDEO with Michelle, we learned how to synthesize. So let's see if I can do it. Okay, first one is address real world challenges for your consumer or your business, whoever your target audience is. We saw that very clearly in App Deco. And by the way, I'm perhaps one of your biggest customers. I pitch it to everybody. So oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong person. I would like a referral service on that. So sorry, I gotta just, okay, so we saw that, and that is really essential. Develop solutions that can integrate seamlessly into existing infrastructure or workflows. So Alakia, very clearly doing that, solving a major pain point. Ensure measurable additionality in terms of climate impact that are both financial and environmental. Scope 0, you're doing that so clearly, and your product has come so far. It's really impressive. And create multi-solution platforms. Planet Forward, you are doing that in spades. So those are things that I was inspired by in the talks. I think across all of them that we saw today, and just generally speaking, this is the time to partner with influential partners and players. Like, this is not a go it alone moment in the market. So get out there with industry players or community players, depending on your product. Provide that credibility by working alongside a known brand. Quickly optimize your unit economics. This is something that I have found in the startup world that founders often leave too late in the game. You need to do this right out of the gate, like optimize those unit economics in your business model so that you can clearly demonstrate to your potential investors when your self-sustaining revenue is going to hit, and that you can do that without too much overhead. And then through all that, you need to demonstrate the viable returns to your investors. You need to be able to walk into a room. I think somebody said it, I can't remember who said it. This is not about being just a purpose-driven market. This is about purpose and profitability. And your investors, you know, you can't give them software returns yet, but they need returns or they are going to walk away from this market. So you need to demonstrate that really early.
So definitely a challenging market, but thank you for all those pointers. And congrats to all of the fantastic innovators too for telling us more about the important work that you do. And now over to Malika. So how can emerging technologies like AI drive more effective climate solutions, and what risks or challenges should we be aware of when integrating them into a sustainability strategy?
Sure. So, Diana painted a very real picture of what's going on in the markets and the financing sector for a lot of you innovators. The good news I will share is that the tooling that many of you are using is better than it's ever been, and it's becoming cheaper and cheaper. And so at a high level, AI is making it cheaper for anyone building anything in software to do it faster with less people. So that's just like a comment on AI in general. I've been working in the applications of AI and robotics, specifically in climate, but also in other unsexy industries, like we talked about construction, supply chain, there's also agriculture, other areas, for a decade. And honestly, I was way too early back then. Like, now is the time to be building. So just wanting to paint an optimistic picture of, like, the tools are ready to take off the shelf, and they're good, and they will actually help you build fast and effective solutions at a price that is reasonable potentially to your customers more than ever. I want to share a couple of examples of companies that are building amazing things on AWS. One of them, for instance, is called Zatums, and they're focused on leveraging AI and quantum to actually develop new materials, which I know is an area you care about, to clean polluted water. So that's like one area that I'm very interested in. Also, materials and water is obviously, I think one of our founders was talking about it earlier too. Another one is Vibrant Planet. They are leveraging AI. They've actually built a foundation model to predict wildfires, which obviously is something that is becoming more and more pertinent with the climate crisis. And another company that I will give a quick shout out to, I'm actually wearing their pants. They manufactured them. They are 3D woven, and so they have no seams. And we were talking about how fashion is the second biggest contributing industry to climate change. If you are 3D weaving clothing, you are not creating a 2D pane and then cutting around it and creating a lot of waste. And so they're driving tremendous savings in waste. They actually just announced a partnership with Walmart. The reason I brought up these three examples is that they were all founded by women and they're all extremely successful. So, want to, again, inspire. In terms of challenges, just to quickly address it, obviously AI, is only as good the algorithm as the data that it ingests. And so we have to think about things like bias in data sets. What is the underlying data? There's been some really interesting things, for instance, that we're doing at AWS and a lot of other companies around small language models, where instead of training an algorithm on a massive data set, you're actually using something that is hyper-specific to a use case so that it's going to have much higher accuracy. So definitely something to consider when you are training AI models. Another thing is the obvious one when it comes to climate is data centers are using a lot of energy and people are using a lot of AI, and that does not have a great impact on the planet. So a lot of what we've been thinking about AWS and I think in the tech sector more broadly is how can we actually make algorithms more efficient and to actually potentially be able to leverage them on CPUs instead of GPUs. So I don't know how nerdy this audience is, but a lot of AI is actually run on GPUs, which are very expensive to run, but you could actually run a lot of these algorithms in a more, like on your phone, for instance, in a more computationally efficient way. And these are some things I nerd about of just how we're trying to move a lot of these AI algorithms to have less of a climate impact from an energy perspective.
Opportunities, but also challenges for these fantastic technologies. Olga, with climate startups, especially the ones that are a little bit farther along in their journey, right? Facing long development cycles. What does a successful exit in this scenario look like? Are we seeing more M&A activity, IPO potential, or even new financial models?
So I get to be the optimistic one in this panel, right?
I try to.
Look, I think it's really easy, right, to point to all the stats. Financing obviously is way down, 50, 60, 70% down, depending on your sector since 2020, 2021. People are taking longer to raise their next round. M&A sadly is not up. It is also down relative to last year, and never mind the heights of 2021. And we wish that the IPO market was reopened. But again, unfortunately, the first quarter of 2025 has been slow. So the world is tough out there in terms of how to raise money, how to exit. What do you think? But I think this is a great time to actually reframe that discussion and reframe the debate. What does a successful exit look like? And by the way, is it even an exit? If you're an entrepreneur and you're building an incredible company that addresses the needs of your customers, that it addresses the needs of your constituents, maybe you don't get to be on the front cover of the Wall Street Journal with $1 billion unicorn exit, but there are many other ways to be extraordinarily successful. Owning 100% of a company that's worth $10 million is a lot better than owning 0.3% of a company that's worth $1 billion. And that might be significantly better for you as a person because perhaps you didn't give away as a founder, you didn't give away control of your company to a bunch of board members and investors that might or might not have been aligned with your needs, who might or might not have imposed a ton of stringent conditions on you, who might or might not have actually, in many cases, frankly, forced you as the founder and entrepreneur of a company to take decisions that you might not have wanted to do, not in the sector, right? But the bankruptcy of 23andMe that happened this week is an example of an amazing woman entrepreneur who founded an incredible business and was meaningfully successful and subsequently took on tremendous capital and venture dollars and ended up, according to multiple opinions, expanding into a ton of high growth areas that might not have been in the company's best interest and might not in fact have led to the greatest success that the company could have had. So is there another history in which they and others like them focused on the core product that really means a lot to their customers, that customers are willing to pay for, as we've talked about, that customers are willing to continue to pay for, that organizations are interested in, that regulators are interested in? And is that better for the world, better for the environment, better for you, the entrepreneur, sustainable business that's worth, I don't know, 50 or 100 million and not 15 billion? And is that better? And so I would focus on reframing a little bit in that direction, because money is no longer free. The zero interest rate environment is no longer here and may never be back. And that's okay, because I think we as women, frankly, in this room are incredible at thinking about things differently and building businesses differently and maybe more sustainably. And look, on the M&A front, maybe the $1 billion exit is no longer there. The 50 or 100 million exit is 100% there. Corporations care. Leaders in their fields in the corporate space are 100% there, interested in spending dollars and buying tuck-in businesses that are small, that are manageable for them to digest in their balance sheet, that address a specific problem that their own R&D organization hasn't built. And maybe that's your exit. So that's my positive light.
Wow. Very positive. And also that equity can determine your sustainability pathway, as you were mentioning. For anyone or all, how are these emerging policies that we see all the time, every time, influencing your investment strategies in climate tech? Who wants to
I am happy
start?
to chime in. I mean, $2 trillion was invested last year in the energy transition. So I think there's fact versus all the noise, and we as a community need to be mindful of the news sources and the information that we actually take in and how that actually impacts our business decisions. I think another stat that I think that really resonates with me is 90% of all energy that was added to the grid last year was renewable, right? And talking about the AI conversation that Malika was referencing, we as a country and as a world have significant energy needs, right? About 3x demand globally versus in 2050 versus what we have today. It takes a lot of time, resources, and capital to actually build out transmission lines and new infrastructure. It's pretty easy to put up solar panels on your home, right? And I think those are the types of things that we all need to keep on reminding ourselves in terms of what is actually the market thinking. Is it cheaper? Is it more cost effective? Is it faster? So yeah, that's continuing the positivity, right? We might be hearing a lot of noise, but the reality on the ground is actually quite different.
And one thing that I was going to add, Olga was talking about maybe venture is not the only place to get money, at least not in the way that entrepreneurs have. One of the reasons I left venture and joined AWS is that I knew that I would have more impact at a tech company in putting resources into founders working in climate than in venture at this point. And so one thing I wanted to call out is we have this initiative at AWS called Compute for Climate, where we basically give $200,000, so non-dilutive, not equity, of money, where we will basically build a proof of concept with you on AWS that will help you accelerate your climate solution. And applications are open, I believe, until next week. So would definitely recommend people apply. But look out for those opportunities as well. There's so much money from foundations, from other places in the market. And I really agree with, don't worry too much about what Silicon Valley, the TV show, told you is a cool founder journey. We're trying to make an impact here. And so get the support wherever you can take it.
I would add, as the venture investor on the stage, that seriously, one of the first things that we ask founders anytime I get a pitch deck is, do you have other sources of capital lined up, right? Because if you are creative about actually utilizing grants to build your business, that will help you get through the R&D phase. Then you can take on a little bit of venture to help you scale and commercialize. But the reality is that there's also debt capital out there. There's revenue-based financing, asset-backed debt. There's all sorts of tools out there to help you actually build your business in a much more financially sustainable manner as you grow for those exits, right? And if you've got to be able to leave room on your cap table for those sources to come on and not dilute yourselves, not dilute us as early stage investors, right? And think about sort of the broader toolkit a lot across the capital stack.
Thank you, everyone. Well, we've reached the end of this panel. Thank you for all your contributions. And please, everyone here, check out the resources. Also, I'm gonna promote also the resources of the United Nations Global Compact. We have resources for companies at early stage that want to explore sustainability pathways, totally free, obviously non-dilutive. So please check those out. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Can we get one more round of applause for all the amazing founders and investors here? I didn't want to fly. I know you all saw the Q&A slide. I don't want to get your hopes up. I think we should do it over some networking. I think let's all just talk. There's so many amazing people here in the audience. We'll have the entire lobby open, some snacks and bites. And hopefully, as I said at the beginning, this is the first of many conversations we can have together. I know Climate Week is coming up in the fall. So if you're interested in doing this again, making it bigger and better, come find me. And thanks again all for coming.
Girl, I'm about to have a panic attack. I did the work, it didn't work. That truth, it hurt, that damn it hurts. That lovey-dovey shit was not a fan of